One of the advantages of using Firebase as your analytics service of choice is that it's integrated with Google AdMob, which is one of the biggest providers of advertising services in apps. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to add ads from Google AdMob and put them right there in your app. This can be a great way to monetize your app, especially if you want to keep it free for people to download. So we'll start by doing a quick Google for AdMob. And then we want ads.admob.com. That will require you to be logged in as a Google user. I'm sure you've got an account by now. So here is where you sign up for AdMob. If you already have an AdWords account and an AdSense account, it'll be quite quick. Otherwise, you'll need to create those here. It essentially involves putting in a lot of personal details, so I'm not going to lead you through it here, but just follow the instructions and you'll end up with a specific AdMob ID, and then you'll be able to create specific ad types that you can use in your projects. We're going to focus on the tech side though, which means, of course, that we're going to start by creating a new project, and we're going to be integrating both Firebase and Google Ads here. So we'll have a single view application. I'll call it AdMob Demo. Save it on the desktop. And then we're going to integrate AdMob with it. This time I'm actually going to show you a tutorial because Google's got a really good guide for doing this. So if you Google for something like integrate AdMob with iOS app, fairly near the top of the results, you should get the Getting Started guide to AdMob by Google. So we'll be able to zip through most of this because we're experts. So create a new project, save it, etc., etc. Now add the Firebase and mobile ads SDKs. We know how to add the Firebase one, and all we need to do is know the name of AdMob, and there it is. So these are the key lines that we need to add to our pod file. So let's go over and do that now. So back to the terminal. I'm going to use cd ... to go back to the directory above the one that I'm in now. So that's back in the desktop. And then cd AdMob Demo, again using tab to predict that. And then if I use the up button, I can find the previous commands that I've done, and we'll start with pod init, back over to Xcode, file, open, and open up our pod file within AdMob Demo, uncomment that line, and then we just need to add those commands to set up the Firebase core and the AdMob frameworks. Okay, close that down. Close that one as well. In fact, you don't really need to quit the whole of Xcode, but I quite like to, just in case. And then we'll pod install, and that should install all the Firebase that we need, and also the Google Mobile Ads SDK, and some other bits and bobs as well. Great. So back over to Finder. Let's open up our AdMob Demo XC workspace file. And we'll now have both the Firebase and the Google Ads pods. Here we go. And now let's go back to our tutorial. So we don't need to do the drag and drop method. And then we add a GAD, Google Ads banner view in Storyboard. Now that's not a whole new type, it's a UI view that we can then drag in and change its class to make it a GAD banner view. So let's do that over in main storyboard. I'm going to drag in a UI view, which is a kind of almost generic view, really. There we go. I'll just put it in the middle. And then in the attributes inspector, we want a GAD banner view. Okay, then we're going to create an outlet for this banner view in our viewcontroller.swift, and we'll call it banner view. Now in the guide here, there's a fair bit about constraints. I'm not going to worry about those. Feel free to follow along with those or set your own constraints, but we don't need to worry too much about that right now. We just need the code to set everything up. So now in viewcontroller.swift, we need import Google Mobile Ads. There it is. And now we've got that framework. This line, interestingly, the initialize the Google Mobile Ads SDK, for me, it doesn't work. This could be a Swift 3 issue. It's not actually required anyway, but I'll just show you what happens here. So if we put this in did finish launching with options, and we'll need to import Firebase and import Google Mobile Ads. And I get an error that the GAD Mobile Ads class doesn't have a configure with application ID method within it. So as I say, that may be a Swift thing. If it works for you, then definitely keep that in. Essentially, this enables you to load the ads more quickly, and you'd put your application ID in there, which you would have after having completed the AdMob setup process. But I'm just going to comment out that line. As I say, everything still does work fine without it. So back over to our tutorial. We now want to load an ad. So let's copy the code to do so. And have a quick look, make sure we understand it. So it's just printing the Google Ads SDK version. Then it adds an ad unit ID. Again, you would add your particular ID after having set up your AdMob account. This is just a test one that will work, but it obviously won't make you any money. So make sure that you put your ad unit ID in there before you publish your app. Then we set the root view controller to our view controller. And one small change here, I found that in Swift 3, load request has been renamed to load. So we just need to make that automatic change to get that working. And that's it. So now we've created our new app with Firebase and Google Ads included. There's a small warning here, which again I suspect is something to do with Swift versions or perhaps Xcode beta versions, but it doesn't stop everything working. So I'm just going to leave that. And then if we go over and have a look at the app, when it's loaded, we should see our ad bang in the middle. Except we don't, because I forgot one important step, and that is integrating the Google service info.plist file. So if we go back over to Google Chrome and then add another app in Firebase. So add app. And we'll add Firebase to our iOS app, put in the bundle ID. There it is. Add the app, and then I'll just delete the existing Google service info.plist file. Move that to trash, and then we'll get a new one. It does have to have the right name. and then continue. We've done that already. And I think we have that already, but we'll just go and check. And at delegate.swift, yeah, we're already configuring the Firebase framework. So now let's bring in our Google Service Info.plist, copy it in, and try it again. And fingers crossed now it knows who we are. We should get our ad on launch. And there it is. Not particularly pretty, but that's our AdMob Test Smart banner. Wonderful. We're not quite done with our ad testing though, because I'm going to show you the second major type of ad with AdMob, and that is the interstitial, which is essentially a pop-up ad over the whole screen. So these ones you want to use very sparingly if you don't want to very much frustrate your users. The most common example that I've seen of them is at the end of a Go in the Words with Friends app, and that's definitely how they're intended to be used, to appear, say, when you complete a level of a game or if you die in a game, something like that. But setting them up is pretty straightforward. Let's get back over to our guide and scroll to the bottom, and you can see that there's a guide for interstitials as well. So feel free to take a bit of time to read that in more detail. But essentially, what we're doing is on the load, then we're creating the ad. So we're actually setting the ad up in the viewDidLoad method, and then we're just showing it at the correct point. So you don't have to wait for the load when the ad appears. So we're going to add a new variable type, GAD interstitial, and you can see we're going to need the UI alert view dialog as well. So let's add both of those in. UI alert view delegate. And then the code that we need to create our ad is just there. I'm going to put it straight into viewDidLoad. And you can see again, we're creating it with a particular ad unit ID, which again, you could edit once you've got your AdMob account set up. We create a request, and we can specify particular test devices. Again, you set those up on your AdMob account, but we're just running it on the simulator. So I'm going to leave it as the simulator ID. And finally, I think this has been updated again to just load. Okay, so that will load the ad and get it saved in memory, ready to display whenever we want. So what I'm going to do is to create a button, which then when we press will display the ad. Try that again. So then let's create an action for it in the viewController.swift file. I'll call it display ad. Make it an action, and off we go. And then back to our tutorial. And here we go. Let's copy this over. We don't need our endGame method because we've got our display ad method instead. So in the display ad method, it creates a UI alert view with a title of game over, etc. We don't actually need that. So I'm going to get rid of the UI alert view. And in fact, all we need is that little bit there. So if the interstitial is ready, then we'll present it from the root view controller. I suspect that's been renamed. Yep, there we go. So present from root view controller self, or print that the ad wasn't ready. Okay. So when going through tutorials, it's often very useful to actually change it slightly. And then you'll realize that the alert view was good in terms of this game, but wasn't actually needed at all in terms of the actual display of the ad. So let's now see this in action. With any luck, when we press the button, it will display that full screen ad for us. I'm going to give it just a few seconds to hopefully have the ad ready. There's our other ad, and now let's have a look. So display ad, and there it is. So that's all worked fine, and we can close it down and then continue with the game or whatever it is. Brilliant. So use them sparingly, and ads can be an excellent way to monetize your app without having to charge your users directly. We're not done yet though with iOS special features. We're now going to have a look at some other features which were introduced in iOS 9 with the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, and they are 3D touch, peek and pop, and quick actions.